Hello, everybody, and welcome to another video of Green Square Talks Battlebots. Joining me in this video, co-hosting, we have Pory Nog, Civilian Arc, and Bbbnpodcasts. How are the three of you all doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic.
I'm doing great, ready to analyze some bot seedings.
Yeah, I'm good.
That's good for all of you. So basically in this video, we are probably a little more than halfway through the regular season here in Battlebots 2020, and we thought we would show off our power rankings, basically whom we think would be in the top 32 if the top 32 happen to start in the next episode. These are all our opinions, as I will tell you that for all four of us, our rankings are very different from the others. I imagine if you're viewing this, your top 32 would probably be different. BattleBot's top 32 would be different. Yeah, these are all our opinions. So before we get started and go to 32, thought maybe the four of us would all share exactly how we determined our top 32, as some of us probably did it a little differently than others. So we'll start with myself here, where I pretty much did my top 32 both on records, the bots' opponents, and then as well exactly their performance, just how impressive it was and such. So Pory, you want to go next?
Yeah. Okay. So I pretty much did the same thing. It's based on like the performance and how good they looked in their fights. Obviously with the being the round of 32, there's gonna be robots on all of our lists that have like no wins so far, but you gotta kind of base it on like it being a good loss. Like let's say like Captain Shrederator versus Lockjaw. Captain Shrederator was like doing pretty good in that fight until they got knocked out. So that looks like a good loss to me. But then aside from that, I pretty much with my list, like I think for a few of them, I was like I was thinking about future fights that I know about them, and I'm like, they might win that, but I didn't really consult that much. There's just a few that I saw coming up that I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be a future. That's gonna be like a fight that they're probably gonna win. But for the most part, it's just based on what they currently have going on.
Okay, so Civilian, you want to go next?
I kind of did the same thing, but I also included a potential for each BattleBot this season. Is that how I seeded it? Like for the future fights, for example, like Chomp versus Ghost Raptor, and what it showed of that, and the potential of that fight, how Chomp would do, how Ghost Raptor would do. I based it off of that as well.
Okay, so Podcast, you want to go next?
I did something very similar. I also like took into account like how good the robot is, even though like they haven't had like good wins. So like Witch Doctor is still a really good bot, but like it hasn't had good it hasn't won anything. And also I took into account like some of these robots are rookies and like what's like the probability of them like sort of breaking down as we all see like rookies end up doing sometimes.
Perfect. So I will repeat myself once again. Like these are all our opinions here. Your rankings would probably look a lot different from ours if you did a top 32 of your own. Like between the four of us, we all our opinions are respected here. You're welcome to comment below your top 32, as I would love to see it here, see how your opinions differ from mine, because all of that is fun. One of the reasons why doing podcasts like these are so much fun, get to hear some of the opinions of other people here and such. So let's go ahead and get started with this thing, where we'll start with number 32 and then we'll climb up to number 1. So we got top 32. I'll start with myself, where I went with Tantrum, who is currently a winless 0-1 right now with a loss to Valkyrie. I currently see Tantrum as a major contender right now, as Tantrum, they had Valkyrie on the ropes in that battle. Like, they managed to disable Valkyrie's spinner, even though that was a stray wire from Valkyrie, which I'll talk about that later in this video when I get to Valkyrie and such. But Tantrum has proven that they are a much better bot than what we saw as for the past 2 seasons here. Like, I see this bot as a heck of a one to take out. No, they had a minor battery issue. They had a battery issue that shut them down in that one. I think if they didn't have that battery issue, I think they would have won that fight against Valkyrie and would be 1-0 right now.
I agree.
All right, Pory, you're up. So we'll just keep going in this order.
Okay. So for my 32, I picked Captain Shrederator. It's obviously at 0-1 right now, at least in the main season. And then it hasn't had the best record in the past, but this season, even the limited amount of Captain Shrederator we've seen, it seems to be definitely improved. Like, it seems to be more effective, and based on other certain appearances, it seems to be more reliable, and I definitely have some hope for it. I feel like if it gets like 2 like good decent wins, it could definitely make the top 32. I mean, when it fought Lockjaw, like, it probably would have won that fight if it hadn't like stopped spinning. Realistically, like, and that's saying a lot because Lockjaw is like a really good robot. So yeah, Captain Shrederator, number 32 for sure.
Do I go?
Yep.
Okay, I put Smee as my number 32. The design is very interesting as it really like kind of captures the robot as the wedges like bend horizontally or something to that extent. I put Smee here based on its potential, as the performance overall was not that amazing against Sharko, but it still had a very convincing win, and it does have some potential. Smee is definitely seems like a decent bot. I was debating putting either Rusty in this category as well, but I put Smee in as I feel like Smee's opponent was a bit better than Rusty's opponent. So yeah, that's my analysis on that.
Great podcasts.
Okay, so I put Sub-Zero at the number 32 spot. So for 2 reasons. One, the loss against Jackpot, like if it didn't stop working, it would have won that match, and we probably would have seen it higher on the list. And like the reason why I have it at number 32 is that Grabbot, while it's an impressive win, Grabbot itself is not a very good robot, and I feel like it was gonna win that easily, and I feel like that sort of, it doesn't necessarily hurts it, but doesn't necessarily help it a lot. So like I was really thinking about putting like Kronos, who we haven't seen in it, or like some other robots, but I decided to put Sub-Zero in the top 32 because I think it still has a lot of potential now that they've gotten everything like figured out.
Perfect. So now let's get to number 31, where I threw Witch Doctor in. Witch Doctor, who is currently sitting at 0-2 right now with losses to Hydra and Kraken. Even though Witch Doctor is 0-2 and, in my opinion, facing the runner-up curse that Bombshell had in 2018 and Minotaur had in 2019, I feel like Witch Doctor can definitely come back from that. Now, as Witch Doctor, even though they lost a tooth early on their weapon in both of those fights, like they've still got a lot of big hits in with that vertical spinner. Now, as they messed up the Kraken, like the front of Kraken, the top of the crusher and stuff. Like Witch Doctor still functioned a lot better in that fight against Kraken. That was one of my favorite main events of the season so far, and such. Like, we know Witch Doctor will take on Slammo based off of a preview we've seen, and that should be an exciting fight. I'm looking forward to it, and I think if Witch Doctor can pull off an impressive win, I think they'll be one of probably a few 1 and 2 bots who will make the top 32 this season.
Should I go?
Yep.
Okay. Claw Viper. So they're 1-1. They have a win against Hijinks, and they have lost against Black Dragon. I mean, there's no shame to losing to Black Dragon, because Black Dragon, in my opinion, is one of the elites. But yeah, at the same time, its win against Hijinks, while it was cool seeing how fast it is. I do have concerns about the weapon because it just seems to get banged up a lot. I mean, I feel like I would give it a higher seed if in its next fight, like it wins by like suplexing its opponent nonstop. But as it stands right now, it's basically a Rambot with a pretty attachment on it. And I as much as I do love Claw Viper, I love how fast it is. I like fast spots. Think it needs to have like a pretty good win to get a higher seed in its next fight. All right. Up to you, Civilian Arc.
I put Hypershock as my 31 seed. Some of you guys viewing this might be wondering why I put Hypershock in the 31 seed. It seems like Hypershock's quality, to compare the Hypershock's current 2020 quality to Hypershock's 2019 quality, it definitely seems like Hypershock has gotten a little bit worse this year so far. From in between Hypershock's gruff fight and its bounty hunters fights against Scorpios, Ghost Raptor, and Sporkanock, it doesn't seem like Hypershock has that much weapon power in it. And while Will is still an amazing driver, without its weapon, it's not really doing a lot. But I put Hypershock in 31 because of Will's driving. Will's driving is by far still the best thing about Hypershock, and if this was a competition based solely on driving, Hypershock would easily get the 1 seed here. Unfortunately, it's not just that. So I put Hypershock in the 31 seed because while Hypershock isn't looking too great, it still has a ton of potential, and I can still see it making the round of 16 or even the quarterfinals.
Okay, so I have Fusion at number 31, and it's also a very similar thing with Sub-Zero at 32 for me. While it had a very impressive win against Aegis, it's not like Aegis, I don't feel like is that strong of a bot. And its loss against Mad Catter really like showed some of its flaws on like how small the wheels are and its turning radius. And I feel like it's just also a very difficult robot to drive. So that's why I put Fusion at number 31.
Okay, so now let's go to 30, where I have Sub-Zero at number 30. So basically Sub-Zero 1-1 with a win over Jackpot and an over Grabot and a loss to Jackpot. Sorry about that. So basically with that Jackpot one, we saw Sub-Zero's main switch get damaged and cause it to completely shut down. We saw them get a very impressive win here against Grabot as they managed to like repair the robot, and we saw it constantly flipping its opponent like what we saw in their fight last season against P1. Now, as I probably would have ranked Sub-Zero higher than 30, but, well, I would like to rank Sub-Zero higher than 30, but I want to see them take on like a much tougher, more elite bot. No offense to the builders of Grabot if you're watching this thing here. Like, I want to see Sub-Zero do what they were able to do to Grabot again, but in a battle with a much more with a more veteran team, like a more elite team, like a team that went far last season, possibly and such. Like, I think their third fight, if I remember from one of the previous podcasts, is Sporkanock.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we'll see another like reasonably impressive victory out of Sub-Zero, because I think if they win that fight, I would definitely put them in the top 32. I'm not sure exactly if I put them at a really high seed and such, because I don't see Sporkanock. I see Sporkanock as a tougher bot than Grabot, but not too much and such. No offense to Sporkanock as well. But Sub-Zero, I would still put them in the top 32 as Sub-Zero is a pretty good flipper bot here.
All right. So for number 30, I picked Slammo. It looked good in its first fight. I mean, it got a suplex. That's all I really wanted. I didn't care if it won or not. I just wanted to get a suplex and I'd be happy. But so they're 1-0, but their one win was not the most impressive. I mean, it was impressive seeing it like suplex, but at the same time, Pain Train was like barely working, and they were definitely having their teething troubles. So I want to see Slammo get thrown in the arena with like someone a little more elite. I mean, obviously it's going to happen. They're going to fight Witch Doctor eventually, but I'm assuming they're going to fight someone else before that. I can't remember off the top of my head who it is, or if we even know. But yeah, I feel like Slammo is doing pretty good. Like they're definitely top 32 material, but I think their next two fights will make or break what they do. I think as long as they get like one more win, they should definitely be in. Like I don't know if they'll beat Witch Doctor. Probably not. I mean, that's nothing against Danby. You know, obviously, Witch Doctor is kind of a scary robot, so he wouldn't want to fight it either. But yeah, Slammo, they're looking good, but they gotta get that extra edge. I feel.
So for my 30 seed, I put Perfect Phoenix, and out of all the bots that I've ranked, Perfect Phoenix was probably my toughest one to rank because it was just really hard for me to determine the quality of Perfect Phoenix. Like it got a win over Extinguisher, but I think it was like a speed controller or something that something happened to Extinguisher's speed controller. But then it lost to Scorpios, which was kind of just a bloodfest for Scorpios. Scorpios was doing a ton to Perfect Phoenix. So it was very tough for me to to even understand where I should put Perfect Phoenix, but I decided to go with 30 based on the potential of the robot because it seems like it has massive potential to like just destroy everything. But I also can see Perfect Phoenix losing to a lot of bots that have like a low wedge and could just like out wedge Perfect Phoenix and get it like turn it over somehow. So I put Perfect Phoenix on the 30 seed because of that. I see potential in Perfect Phoenix, but I also see some downfall that could happen to Perfect Phoenix.
Okay, so I have Claw Viper at number 30. I do see a lot of potential in Claw Viper, but as Pory said earlier, like it's basically more or less just like a wedge that like moves really fast, and like I'm very concerned about the weapon and like it not like suplexing. Like it didn't look functional in either of its fights, and like obviously Black Dragon is a very tough fight for them. Props to them for fighting one of the best in the game. And I do feel like the hijinks fight was a good win for them to just show off that this robot like ended up being like a decently like durable bot. And I feel like there's so much potential, but for now I have it at 30. If it like probably wins another match, I'll put it higher, but at this point 30 is probably the highest I can put it.
All right, so now we got 29, where I went with Huge. Now, Huge, they're sitting at 0-2 with a loss to Mammoth and then a controversial loss to Hydra, and which some of my opinions actually did kind of change based off of that fight compared to if you saw the podcast over this episode after I rewatched the fight and checked out Waiachi's game plan. Now, as this is an example of that fight with Hydra is kind of like an example of a fight where there are holes in the rule book right now. Now, as like Hydra did nothing that was really illegal. Like even when he was arguing with the referee, like I don't know exactly about the pin thing, the whole thing. Like I don't think he was technically pinning Huge in the corner, but he was trapping Huge in the corner, and that's something that's not technically against the rules right now and such. So but overall, though, we didn't see a lot in that fight with Hydra between Huge and Hydra. Like, I don't think that, like, I wouldn't really count this one as really hurting Huge too much. Like, yes, it definitely did hurt them a little to lose this fight, but I don't really count. I didn't really count it much against Jonathan Schultz. Now, as I think if they can win their third fight the same way like we've seen Huge win many times in 2018 and 2019, I think they will be a 1-2 bot that will be able to make the top 32. As Huge is still a very unusual design. Jonathan Schultz does a terrific job building it and driving it. That vertical spinner is quite powerful. And I bet we could see big things out of Huge in this season and see a heck of a comeback from them.
Okay, so for number 29, I picked Rotator. I mean, they have a losing record so far, but at the same time, well, I mean, for one thing, the judge's decision was nonsense, but besides the point of that, um, Rotator at least showed potential. I mean, he was like getting slammed into nonstop, and that spinner kept going and going. You know, it didn't hold off at all. And I feel like if it gets some wins, it'll definitely make the top 32. But I'm not sure how high of a seed. I mean, I know it fights Valkyrie at one point. I don't know if they can win that. I'm sure they could, but yeah, I think if it gets some wins, it could definitely be a lot higher than 29 because they're showing to be a very good, reliable machine.
So I put Whiplash as my 29 seed. Whiplash is at a losing record right now. Lost to Sawblaze. But Whiplash has always showed potential. It's always the concept of Whiplash has always been ingenious. And I can see Whiplash winning based on just the control Whiplash has over its opponents and how it can just outdrive everyone. I'm not sure who Whiplash is fighting for its second fight. I think it's Mammoth, but I'm not too sure.
Gruff.
Oh, Gruff. All right. So
I mean, they fight Valkyrie as well. I think
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one's first, but
Gruff in the next
Oh, it's Gruff.
episode.
Okay,
right,
cool.
So I could see Whiplash getting 2-1, but I can't see its wins being amazingly impressive. More impressive than some of the other robots that have won so far, like a Hydra or Kraken or Black Dragon or Tombstone. I can't see Whiplash getting like insanely impressive wins, but I can still see it getting decent enough wins to punch itself into the top 32.
Yeah, sorry about the typo. Whiplash should be 0-1, not 1-0, unfortunately. All right, go ahead, podcast.
Okay, I have Tantrum at number 29, and the sole reason is just that Tantrum was just so dominant against Valkyrie when they had their fight. It's just bad that Tantrum lost that because I feel like Tantrum did such a good job, and Tantrum would definitely be way higher on my list if they won. I can definitely see them winning two more matches and then getting into the top 32. It's just other than like it dying, it was a very durable bot. It was able to take some hits from Valkyrie, so I would say that Tantrum is good at 29, even though it's 0-1.
Okay. So for number 28, I put down Fusion. Now, this is not Aegis. Fusion. Don't get misled by that image. Now, as we got Fusion, who is currently sitting at 1-1 with a loss to Mad Catter in the first episode, but then bounced back in the most recent episode and got a win over Aegis. Now, as Fusion, they've proven even in that Mad Catter fight the destruction of both of those spinners, as I think they did take some chunks and took some pieces out of Mad Catter in that first battle. And then when they fought Aegis here, Aegis's parts were all over the arena, including one of those side panels. Now, as Fusion has definitely proven and throughout this season that those two weapons are very powerful, very destructive. Of course, though, we didn't really get a test of how well their internals held up in that fight with Aegis. Now, as in Fusion, they had internal issues that caused a fire in their machine, and we didn't see that in the last one because they got a quick knockout and such. What I would like to see in their third fight, if I wanted to rank them higher than 28, is I want to see them take on like just like some of the previous bots in here, previous non-veterans. I want to see them take on like a much more powerful, much more, like a veteran machine before like I'd rank them higher than this. Like I think Fusion, if the top 32 was to start like this upcoming Thursday, I think they would be in it. But but I want to exactly count this win as impressive, of knowing how long it took, and he just isn't exactly the most elite bot. No offense, Andrew, and such. But I bet we could see big things out of Fusion throughout this season.
Okay, so I picked Tantrum for number 28. I mean, this is the third time Tantrum's been on one of our top lists, and both times before it was pretty much said the same way I feel about it, that it did well in its fight against Valkyrie. It just had some bad luck and ended up dying. It would have definitely won that fight had it not spontaneously died, and it definitely has a lot of potential. The weapon has better reach this year. It has the ability to self-right, and I have high hopes for it for its next two fights. I think it just needs to get some decent wins before it gets a higher seed.
I put Huge in 28 seed. I was debating having Huge higher because I'm almost 100% sure Huge will win its third fight, no matter who it fights. I'm can see Huge getting 1 and 2, but I don't think Huge would be anything higher than probably the 25 seed, because just based on Huge's losses, and I mean the Huge Mammoth fight, that was really entertaining. The Huge Hydra fight wasn't, but like Huge didn't do like anything really impressive in either of those fights, if I'm being honest. It did well. It did okay, but it didn't do amazing. So I can see Huge getting 1 and 2, but I can't really see it getting anything higher than like the bottom 7 seeds, probably.
Okay, I had Slammo at number 28, and I really do like Slammo. I think it's beaten the Danby curse, and like I feel like it's a way more durable bot than any of other robots that Mr. Danby has made. I do want to see it face like a really strong spinner, like to see if it'll be able to take hits and whatnot. But for now, I have it at 28, and I'm really excited to see what it does in the future.
All right. So then we'll go to 27 next, where I also have Slammo. So we'll get to hear about Slammo twice in a row here. So I put Slammo at 27. They're currently sitting at 1 and 0 with a win over Pain Train right now. Pain Train was having a lot of issues of their own right from the start of this fight, so I wasn't exactly the most impressed with that victory. And kind of like what Podcast said, Ed, I want to see them take on like a big spinner bot, like a much tougher opponent. Like we know they'll take on Witch Doctor, like what Pory said, Ed, and not too long. I'm hoping not too long and such. Like that will definitely give Slammo a real test. Now, I do believe that Danby Curse has been lifted here. Now, I think Slammo has a terrific design here, including we got to see a suplex out of them, which lots of us like to see and such. Like, I bet Slammo will do very well this season. Like, it's a very unique design, and I bet it could go far if it continues to do what it was able to do to Pain Train.
Okay, so for number 27, I picked Whiplash. I mean, they're 0-1 right now, but they lost to Sawblaze, who's just a freaking beast right now. But I feel like they can absolutely bounce back. I mean, they're still a very well-driven robot, have a very unique and really cool weapon system. I mean, obviously they're low just because they don't have a win yet, but I feel like if they do well in their next two fights, they could definitely secure like top 10 seeds. It just depends on how they do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they bring to the table in the future fights.
All right. Witch Doctor as my 27 seed. Witch Doctor, I think, has a better chance of making the tournament than another 0-2 bot like Huge, just based on how well Witch Doctor did against Hydra and Kraken. While it did lose both of its fights, it still was pretty impressive. Not as impressive as like what Witch Doctor 2019 has been able to pull out, but still fairly impressive. So, and if Witch Doctor is fighting Slammo, it might not be. It might just be a postseason fight and not a preseason fight. But I think Witch Doctor can pull off a third win and get itself into the top 32. I can't see Witch Doctor getting a really high seed because of its reliability issues, however. It's always had reliability issues. 2019 it had reliability issues. In 2020, Witch Doctor's having some other problems with like its weapon. It keeps losing its tooth and stuff like that. So I can see what Witch Doctor getting far, but I can also see it bowing out in the first round.
Okay, I have Jackpot, the 2-0 robot Jackpot at number 27. And the reason why I have it there is, first of all, the Sub-Zero win. It wasn't that impressive, in my opinion. It was Sub-Zero's fight to lose, and Sub-Zero lost it. But I am very impressed by the Ghost Raptor win, but we've already seen previously that Ghost Raptor isn't the most reliable bot out there. And obviously this has such like good potential, and like it's incredible what you can make for like, what was it, only like $4,000 that this heavyweight robot was built out of. Very impressive. It's just that once again, it's a rookie. To me, it is a little bit unproven. I would love to see it face a Whiplash. I would love to see it face like a Sawblaze or something like that, like a robot that is like a very good driver at the helm of the robot. And like if it wins that, then like the sky's the limit for Jackpot.
All right, so next up we got 26, where I went with Chomp, the 500-pound hammer bot here. Chomp had a very in my opinion, an awesome win over Gamma 9. Now, as Gamma 9 proved to be a much better bot than what we saw in 2018, so I would call that an impressive win, and that Chomp managed to receive there. However, though, they are unproven as for how well they could take on spinner bots. Now, as I have heard that armor is very good defense for spinner bots, as we've seen Chomp take on spinners, and Huge is really the only one of those spinner bots they've taken on that's managed to rough up Chomp and do like some significant damage there. Now, as we know that Chomp will take on Ghost Raptor sometime this season, which meaning that we'll get to see them take on a spinner bot and such. Like, I would want to rank Chomp higher if I would rank Chomp higher if they could like prove themselves in that, which I definitely believe they can. Now, as Zoe Stevenson has done a terrific job engineering Chomp, including she engineered a walker bot that worked very well. Now, as we haven't seen many walkers that were as successful, or shuffler bots as well, that were as successful as Chomp was in that fight with Gamma 9. Now, there's a few examples being Pressure Drop back in the Comedy Central era, Son of Waiachi, the season they won over in the Comedy Central era as well. Like, we don't see a lot of walkers do so well now, as because Chomp had a very impressive first fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing those next two fights. I just hope that we'll get to see them take on some massive spinner bots. It's just to see like how well they can hold up to stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm hoping we'll get to see stuff like that out of them for the rest of the season.
Okay, so for 26, I picked Rusty. I mean, obviously, I don't think Rusty's gonna be going like super far in the tournament or anything, but as it is right now, it is 1-0. It beats Scorpion. It's a fairly low seed though, just because like its win was more so Scorpion having issues as opposed to Rusty doing anything. In retrospect, I'm looking back on this even right now, and I'm like, I should have probably made him a few seats lower, but it is what it is. But yeah, Rusty, I look forward to seeing their upcoming fights. Based on what I know about them, I'm a little worried for Rusty, but I think if it gets another win or two, it should definitely make the top 32 and hopefully with like a decent seed.
So for 26, I chose Fusion, which I'd say is pretty much make or break right now, depending on its third fight. I'd say if the season ended now, it would probably make the tournament, as its fight it was really impressive with Aegis, but its fight against Mad Catter left much to be desired. So I'm kind of worried about Fusion, but I think that Fusion does have potential, a lot of potential, because those weapons seem very potent. Like, so I could see Fusion getting a seed in the top 32. Maybe not a high seed, but still a pretty decent seed. But for right now, I'd probably put Fusion in 26 just because its fight win wasn't that impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, the win was destructive, but Aegis isn't a bot that we really know the quality of. We don't know like what on peak performance Aegis is at. So that's why I put Fusion at 26.
Now we have a little like this might be very controversial. I have Mammoth at 26. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people have Mammoth really high because it'd be huge. And obviously that's a big win for them. But I just can't get it out of my mind that it's just like a very gimmicky robot. The fact that it is a very massive robot. And Huge was close to winning that fight. And it's at the point for me where I feel like if Mammoth does end up getting good wins, which like I might be surprised if it does, then like it'll be a really good robot. But right now, I can't see it winning like a bunch of different fights, and like they've made a bunch of improvements. But I feel like for what it's worth, Mammoth is still a very gimmicky robot, and for that, I have to put it lower. I feel like.
All right. So next up, 25, where I threw Valkyrie in there. Valkyrie, they got a win over Tantrum, but it was not the most impressive win, in my opinion. Now, as they did land some big hits at the beginning of this fight, but their weapon fell not long into it, which when they talked about it on social media, that was because of one stray wire. I got a lot of confidence in Valkyrie this season. That spinner would just not stop working throughout most of their fights last season. Like every one of their fights except for Quantum, like that was completely true for that one. Like I feel like if Valkyrie, I think they fixed that issue as for what they've said in social media, and I got a lot of confidence that Valkyrie could go far this season. They just missed the top 16 both of the past two seasons. And I think this is the year that Valkyrie is able to make the top 16. Now, as we know that they'll take on Whiplash, and I don't know, Rotator as well. And I believe the Rotator one comes first, if I think. But yeah, I think if Valkyrie can do well in those fights, they'll have a top 32 spot, and I bet they'll be able to go quite far in the tournament, as this is still a very elite bot, a very destructive machine and such, and I bet we'll be seeing a lot of parts flying out of their opponents.
Okay, so for number 25, it picks me, but it looked good in its first fight. I mean, it wasn't the most flashy win, and I do have concerns about those horizontal undercutters doing significant damage. Like it did a little bit of damage to Sharko, but it wasn't like as much as I had hoped. But at the same time, I also feel like Smee is going to be very, very difficult to counter. I mean, I want to see it face up against like a decent spinner in one of its next two fights. I know it fights Pain Train in its next fight, and I don't have a lot of hope for Pain Train in that because its spinner doesn't have a whole lot of reach, and Smee is like all wedge. But yeah, I think Smee, unless they get like a really good win, which I don't think they'll get a good win, they're bound to get like a pretty low seed. But at the same time, I do think that they're gonna make the top 32 unless they like lose to the Pain Train or something. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, but I don't really think that they have what it takes to be a high seed.
Okay, I put Captain Shrederator at the 25 seed. This is based off of what I've seen from all of its fights in 2020 so far. This includes Bounty Hunter, and my god, Captain Shrederator in Bounty Hunter was freaking amazing. It destroyed Sharko. It had a pretty good fight against Rotator. If it didn't lose its weapon, it would probably win the judges' decision and move on to fight Mad Catter in the finals. So I'd say Captain Shrederator is looking pretty good right now. I know it's fighting X backwards in its next fight, I think, and I'm not sure what its third fight is, but I think this might finally be the season where Captain Shrederator shows what a full body spinner can really do and how destructive Captain Shrederator actually is. The only reason I have it at 25 right now is because, of course, it still has the unreliability issues it's always shown. So I can still see Captain Shrederator like murdering a robot, but then killing itself in the process, because Captain Shrederator is a bit of a glass cannon in some ways. So while I do think Captain Shrederator could do well, I can also see it doing not so well.
Okay, I have Gigabyte at number 25. And now I think a lot of people are going to say, why is Gigabyte at number 25? He got decapitated by Copperhead. Let me explain. Gigabyte, I feel like, has such destructive potential that I think it deserves to just be in the spot in the tournament. I feel like there's a lot of opponents that it can beat and upset. And I just sort of have that gut feeling that like Gigabyte's going to come back with a fiery rage, as is with like the flames that it has on its dome. And I feel like it certainly has the potential to do a lot of damage. And we know it fights Grabot. I'm not 100% sure if that's a bounty hunter fight or if it's a like fight in the main season. But from what we saw from that fight, like it's a very destructive robot, and I have to give it credit for being that. So that's why it's at number 25.
All right, next up, 24, where I selected Whiplash for 24. Now, as Whiplash happened to be the bot I predicted to win the whole thing at the beginning of the season, mentioned that a few times and such, I still think Whiplash, even though they lost to Sawblaze, who is proving to be a elite machine, as we've always seen out of them, I definitely think Whiplash is still an elite machine, despite Sawblaze controlling like almost the entire fight. Now, as Whiplash is still such a unique design with that vertical spinner and that lifter, and that it's very well driven by Matty Vasquez. As we know, they're going to take on Gruff and Valkyrie this season for the regular season and such, at least as of what I know. And I think they could do some damage and come back from that loss that they took to Sawblaze here. And I think if they can win one of those, I think they can manage to make it in, as long as those two fights were impressive. But if they win both of those, I think they'll still have a top 10 seed, like what they managed to get last season. Like they managed to get, if I remember right, I think wasn't their seed 5, even such.
Something like that.
Yeah, like
5
I feel
seed.
like if they win both of those fights, they'll get at least top 10, very possibly top 5, in the top 32.
Okay. And also, shout out to Civilian Art. We got the same number 24. But but yeah, I picked Beat for 24 because they have a win, but I don't think they deserve a much higher seed because their win wasn't that impressive. It's very well driven, and it's definitely a good robot, but that refusal to use the hammer really hinders it for me. But I feel like if they have two pretty destructive fights in their next two matches, I feel like it will definitely get a higher seed. But as it is right now, it's basically a glorified wedge bot as far as its first fight is concerned, and that's why I can't give it any higher than a 24 seed.
All right, so I put Beta 24 seed, same as Pory did. Beta's always been a good driver. John Reed's a great driver when it comes to robot combat. But because of its refusal to use the hammer, I can't see it doing that great. And also, I spoke with John, the team captain of Extinguisher, one time, and he said out of the 4 hammer robots that tested their weapons, Shatter, Chomp, Extinguisher, and Beta, he said that Beta was actually the weakest one in terms of like hammer testing. So
Really?
Wow.
yeah. So with that, I think that Beta could make it far, but without like an impressive hammer. But I mean, the thing with hammer bots is that you always have to have a good driver with hammer bots. That's the thing. If you have a bad driver with hammer bots, you're already screwed. John Reed is a great driver with Beta, so I can see it winning just by pushing robots around. I can't see it winning because of the judging criteria, but I can still see it getting pretty far. But I'm putting it on 24 seed just because of its weapon issues.
I have a Shatter at number 24. It sits at 1-1, and I feel like I love the design of Shatter. I love the Omni wheels. I love all the plastic that falls off. I really do like it. I am a little concerned because like we did see the hammer fall off in like the Malice, and I know there was like a shot that they like made and they did by themselves, like, and they controlled that. But we've seen that hammer head fall off before, and like it's a very powerful hammer. And I do feel like once again, if it gets a really good win, it would be a higher seed. But right now, I feel like a lot of other robots are stronger than it. Like 24, like it deserves to be in like the 24th seed, but I don't feel like it doesn't deserve to be lower. I don't feel like it doesn't deserve to be higher because there's a lot of good robots above it, and there's a lot of decent robots under it that I think Shatter could beat.
Definitely. Next up, we got 23, where I threw Lockjaw in there for 23, who is currently undefeated with a win over Captain Shrederator, and they beat Big Dill in the last episode. And shout out to Pory for figuring out that for seeing that they possibly paired Lockjaw and Big Dill up because Lockjaw's vertical spinner looks somewhat like a pickle. Yeah, that was amazing.
That was a good read, Pory.
Yes. Now, as Lockjaw, I wasn't exactly the most impressed with that Captain Shrederator victory. Now, yes, they took out a big spinner bot there, but Lockjaw was having a bunch of issues of their own very early. Now, as they are having weapon issues, now as we've seen a lot of those over the past and such. And then we saw them take on Big Deal, come in with a heavier spinner. I think they bounced back from that reasonably. We did see some smoke coming out early in the fight, just because that is a heavy spinner that they threw on. So that's kind of like harder against their internal since it weighs more than the spinner they used against Captain Shrederator. But I still see Lockjaw as able to go far in the tournament as it's Donald Hudson driving it. He and John Reed are probably the two biggest legends that are in the Battlebots 2020 field, as both of those builders have been doing this for a long time. Lockjaw definitely has a championship worthy design here. Now, as Lockjaw's definitely had some concerns as for like weapon reliability and so on. But I think Lockjaw can bounce back from all of that, like be able to fix up some of those issues that Donald Hudson's been having, and I bet Lockjaw can go far in the tournament this season.
All right, so for number 23, I picked Valkyrie. I mean, they're 1-0, they're undefeated right now, but at the same time, like it was mentioned before, their win was pretty much just like Tantrum died. That's their win, but like their spinner stopped working. I think if they can fix their reliability issues, which I'm assuming they can, I mean, they're a talented team, they're very well driven, and it's a nasty robot, and it's one of my favorites. I feel like if it does well in its next two fights, I feel like it's going to definitely get a higher seed. I think it only really needs one more win to definitely clinch a spot, but I think it needs two good wins in order to get like a high seed. Otherwise, as it stands right now, though, it's definitely number 23.
Okay. I put Slammo as 23. I was debating having it actually lower than what it currently is, but I think the design works well enough that it could get a pretty decent spot in the top 32, not the top 16, but probably in one of the seeds in between 32 and 17. I can see it getting one of those seeds. It had a pretty impressive fight against Pain Train, but Slamo didn't look. It kind of looked a bit slow, and it seemed like if Pain Train survived, I think Slamo would show a bit more internal problems, because it kind of showed Slamo was having a little bit of driving problems at the end there. So I can see Slamo doing good, but I can also see it having some reliability issues, some first season gremlins, if you will.
Okay, I put Chomp at number 23, and Chomp is high on this. Well, it's not high, but like it's on like number 23 because it has a very, very destructive hammer. We saw it go through Gamma 9 like top armor, which is just ridiculous in my mind. And I do feel like it does have some problems. Its mobility isn't the greatest, and I will try to not spoil anything from Bounty Hunters, but its fight in Bounty Hunters I was very disappointed in. I tried not to have like Bounty Hunter bias in this ranking, and I do see some of the problems with Chomp from the episode of Bounty Hunters that Chomp is in, but right now it looks like probably the strongest hammer in the field, which is the main reason why it's at 23 right now.
All right, so next up, 22, where I chose Mammoth. Favorite fight of the season has got to be their one regular season fight against Huge. That was so much fun to watch. Like, we saw Mammoth doing front flips, back flips, and so on. Like, it was so much fun to watch. What Mammoth definitely proved this season is they are very durable this season. Now, as we saw Uppercut manage to take major pieces out of Mammoth and cause them to like fall apart and stuff. I think that's kind of a reasonable description of that one. And here in this one, we saw Huge take get a few hits in on Mammoth, causing them to almost lose that fight multiple times. But Mammoth did hold up reasonably well. Like, I think Mammoth definitely has the design to go further in this tournament than they did last season. I don't really see them winning the whole thing because I do have concerns about them with like horizontal spinners and full body spinners. I'm not sure how well they could take attacks from those, which is kind of why they're at this seed. Like, I think Mammoth has a reasonable shot to make the top 32 and even go further than that. Like, no, they're going to take on Hypershock. I think I want to say that's in the next episode, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. No, I'm a little concerned on whether they could take Hypershock as well, but Mammoth surprised me in that one as I picked Huge for that one, thinking they were going to dominate there, thinking that Mammoth was just going to fall apart early in that one after taking a few shots from Huge, but no. Like, Mammoth threw me for a loop there, provided an entertaining show, and can't wait to see how Ricky Williams does for the rest of the season.
Okay, so for number 22, I picked Big Dill. I mean, they have a 1-1 record. They have a win against Adam 94, who was having teething issues, and then has a loss against Lockjaw, which, I mean, there's no shame against that. I mean, you know, Big Dill managed to deal with Lockjaw pretty well. It held up. But its drive was definitely gurking around a little bit, unfortunately, at the end of that fight. So it definitely was struggling. But I feel like that lifter is definitely decent. I think it needs a little bit more oomph, but I think it has a lot of potential. But since it got into a pickle and it got stuck with Adam 94, it's hard to really tell, like, how efficient it is with like suplexes and whatnot. But Big Deal, I think if they get another win, I think they'll definitely get into the top 32, but I don't think that they'll be able to deal with a really like high spot unless they get like a really dominant win in their next fight.
Before I begin, Pory, you gotta put like $1 in the cliche jar.
I gotta put like $5 in the cliche jar.
Yeah. So I put Gruff as the 22 seed. It has a win over Hypershock so far, and Gruff has always shown some driving power. It's been a really great driver, and I can see it winning because of how well controlled it is and how it can control fights. I can't really see it taking out some high tier spinners. Like if Gruff got in a rematch with Copperhead, I could see Copperhead just destroying Gruff once again. So, but Gruff is still a pretty great design. I can see Gruff going far unless it fights a vertical spinner. I can see it taking on a few horizontal spinners. Like I can see it taking on Tombstone or Gigabyte or Perfect Phoenix. But overall, Gruff is a pretty great, decent bot. It's shown some power, but I also think it has some flaws that can be exploited by other robots. So that's why it's 22 seed for me.
I have Huge at 22, and I feel like this is another controversial one that I have. I have Huge at 22 because it was in some really good fights other than the Hydra one, which I don't want to talk about. But the Mammoth and Huge fight was a very fun, very entertaining fight. And I feel like, crap, I lost my train of thought. I do feel like Huge still has a bunch of potential. It's still one of the best spinners in the game. It's still like a very hard robot to deal with, and I feel like it has the potential to really upset some people and say, "Hey, we still got this, even though we're over 2. We still got this." I feel like it needs to have a really good win to move up in the rankings. But I feel like at this point, Huge still has potential to do some damage, and it's able to win a fight, I hope, at least.
All right. So next up, we got 21. So for 21, I chose Jackpot, who is 2-0 right now with a win over Sub-Zero and a win over Ghost Raptor. Now, as for that win over Sub-Zero, I was not the most impressed with that victory and so on. Now, as Jackpot was having a bunch of issues of their own in that fight, along with Sub-Zero falling because of their main switch being damaged during that fight. However, though, when they came back to came back and fought veteran builder Chuck and Ghost Raptor for their second fight, Jackpot proved that they are the real deal this season. Like that spinner dished out some massive damage, managed to separate the weapon from the body, managed to almost take off an entire side, like tread or wheel, I don't remember which, that Ghost Raptor has, and so on. But yeah, that second fight was a very impressive victory. Like I think if I was doing this after their first fight, if I had top 32 set up, Jackpot probably would be like in the high 20s compared to where they're at right now.
Mhm.
I want to see what I do want to see though. I want to see Jackpot. Like we know they're going to take on Lockjaw, I believe is what we've heard for their third fight. Like I want to see them take on a big opponent like Lockjaw and manage to do exactly what they were able to do to Ghost Raptor against a veteran team or a team that went really far in last season's competition. And I definitely see major potential at Jackpot. I bet they could go quite far in the tournament this season if they manage to continue what they were able to do.
Yeah, me. So for number 21, I picked Chomp. Chomp is definitely improved drastically this year. I mean, its fight against Gamma 9, like, that thing like caved in Gamma 9's skull. That was insane. That hammer has so much power behind it. Obviously, Chomp is never going to win in the control battle. Like, no matter what, when a fight goes to the judges, they're not going to get a single control point more times than not, probably. But at the same time, I feel like that has to be the most destructive hammer that I've seen in Battlebots, and it's just so scary. I was actually concerned about it at first. I didn't think that it would be that powerful, but they proved me wrong, and I'm happy that they did. Chomp is a beautiful machine, and I think if they keep that momentum going, they could definitely make the top 32. I mean, their next two fights are Hijinks and Ghost Raptor. Hijinks, I'm not sure what to think of it. I could definitely see Chomp winning, even if only for the fact that Hijinks has some reliability issues. And Ghost Raptor, I'm fairly confident that Chomp got that. But yeah, Chomp number 21, that's a fair place to put it. And if they do really well in their next two fights, I definitely could see them going higher.
So I put Sub-Zero as my 21 seed. It is 1-1. It has lost a fight to Jackpot, but it has won a fight to Grabot. Sub-Zero did okay against Jackpot, besides the fact that it decided to kill itself. And so it did really good against Grabot. And I'm pretty sure it's fighting Sporkanok next fight. So, and overall, I'm sure a lot of people would score Sub-Zero lower, but I put Sub-Zero as 21 because of how much potential the flipper has. It could be like the second or third best flipper of Battlebots, like, because it flips pretty decently. It has a lot of potential, but it also has some reliability issues. So that's kind of why I put it on 21. It's a good machine, but it has some kinks that need to be worked out. I don't think it could make the top 16, sadly, but I think Sub-Zero could do well in this third fight, and then maybe put up a show in its round of 32 fight, whoever he fights. So yeah.
Okay, so I have Ribot at number 21, and Pory, I am sorry to say that I don't feel that strong about Ribot. It had a impressive win against Tracer, and like it didn't really show me a whole lot about like what this new Ribot can do. And then Mad Hatter, it just, in my opinion, sort of just got like tossed around and like it got like destroyed to shreds. Like I feel like it didn't do as much as I wanted it to, which was very disappointing in my eyes, because I personally I like the idea of Ribot, and like I like how it's a very good like multi-weapon design, but it just hasn't shown me like much confidence. I can't confidently say that it's like a top 20 or a top 15 robot. So it's just sort of sticking here at 21.
All right, next up, now we are going to top 20, where I have my 20 seed being Hypershock, who is currently 0-1 with a loss to Gruff. And I have quite a bit of confidence that Hypershock can bounce back from this one, as they had some loose belt problems, is I believe what I heard that caused a lot of the smoke to come out of Hypershock and have their weapon fall as well. Like some of those are issues that I think Hypershock can repair and come to their second fight with and come back stronger than ever. I know they take on Mammoth in the next episode. I know they take on Endgame because we've seen previews of that. I've also heard that they take on Shatter too. Ooh, same thing.
Hydra.
No, not Shatter. Hydra. Yeah, Hydra. Yeah. Heard some things about that. Like, I got confidence that Hypershock can win in a few of those, whether they're bounty or regular season fights or even top 32 matchups. Like, Hypershock definitely has the design to do well in this tournament. Like, it did very well in 2019, despite coming up just short of the top 16. I bet Hypershock will be able to make the top 32, as he's got the design to get there. They've got the driver to get there, and I'm hoping we'll get to see a rake come this season.
Why did I rank Sub-Zero so high? I don't think Sub-Zero should be a few down from this. I'm sorry, but I mean it looked good in its fight against Grabot, but it looked good in its fight against Grabot. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, it performed well, but it performed well against a robot that realistically can't do anything to it. But yeah, it looked all right in its fight with Jackpot, and then it died spontaneously. Like mentioned previously, it does have a lot of reliability issues that it needs to take care of before it becomes a true contender. But yeah, Sub-Zero should not be at 20.
First of all, I would like to apologize to Pory for not having Ribot in the top half of the seeds.
We're gonna bring it home.
So yeah, Ribot. I'm not too sure how to feel about Ribot right now. It has a win over Tracer, but I'm not too sure about the quality of Tracer because while a lot of people were hyped for Tracer, I was like, that design looks so compact that it could just get thrown around all over the place. And that's kind of what happened in its fight against Trace in Ribot versus Tracer because just one hit was able to flip Tracer over. And in its fight against Mad Catter, Ribot did well, but it was unlucky, I guess, because it turned its back on Mad Catter. So
I made a fatal mistake.
Yeah. So Ribot shows some potential, probably, which is why I put it in top 20 because I can see it doing pretty well, but I don't think I can see it taking out some high tier robots like a Lockjaw or Witch Doctor or Rotator or robots like that.
Well, speaking about Witch Doctor, I have Witch Doctor at number 20. Now, Witch Doctor, very good robot. It had some very entertaining fights, some very good losses, though I feel like there's a lot of things to be concerned about. One, the teeth falling off. That's just been a problem. We haven't seen that before. And I am very nervous for them for that. And honestly, like, this is just sort of what, like, for me, like how Witch Doctor is doing this season. It's been like this for a long time. You know, it had like a really nice first season. Then it like lost its fight against Red Devil the second season. Then it had a decent season, third season. Last year it had a really amazing season, and now it's back to having like a kind of terrible season. I do have faith that they're gonna like bounce back, but right now, it just sucks that Witch Doctor isn't doing a good job because it's such a capable bot, and I feel like it does like I do still feel like it controls its own destiny if it gets into the top 32, but at this point, I'm not very high on Witch Doctor right now.
Perfect. Number 19, where I have Perfect Phoenix, credit to Pory because we have the same one ranked at 19. Yeah, Perfect Phoenix, who is currently 1-1 with a knockout over Extinguisher and a loss to Scorpios. Perfect Phoenix is kind of a difficult one to judge. I think Civilian mentioned this. I think you were the one who talked about Perfect Phoenix earlier. Like, they got a quick knockout over Extinguisher, like one big hit, and then Extinguisher ended up having speed controller issues that prevented them from moving. Compared to when they fought Scorpios, it was in their second fight where they started having weapon issues because I think Scorpios managed to get a perfect box rush on them and managed to get to the interior area with their weapon, at least as of what I think. I could be wrong about that. I probably need to rewatch the fight. But still, like, I see some major potential out of Perfect Phoenix as Tyler, who's quite young, is terrific driver and stuff. Like, yeah, he's done an amazing job of doing it throughout all the competitions he has competed in. And then he's got the design where we've seen past versions with the similar design cause major amounts of chaos. As we saw Hazard win Battlebots Comedy Central 3 times. We saw Brutality win a few competitions in between the Comedy Central era and the era we're currently in for Battlebots. And then we got Perfect Phoenix here, which that horizontal spinner can still cause a lot of damage. I do believe Perfect Phoenix probably needs this next fight, probably needs to win it. But if they do win it and win it in an impressive fashion, I think Perfect Phoenix will make the top 32. No doubt.
What he said. Civilian arc?
All right. Am I the only one that put Tantrum in the top 20?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
thinking about doing that, but I held off.
All right. Well, Tantrum in its Valkyrie fight showed a ton of potential with how destructive that weapon is. It just took control of Valkyrie the entire time, didn't give Valkyrie an inch. And Tantrum shows a lot of potential going into its second and third fights. And I can see Tantrum being like that, the dark horse of 2020,
Hmm.
probably, and making it decently far in the postseason. Uh, Now it needs to get the kinks worked out and its reliability issues in order to get 2-1. So that's why I didn't rank it higher than 19 seed. But overall, Tantrum looks really improved from its 2019 season. It definitely looks like it's gotten huge upgrades.
Okay, so I tried. So number 19, I have Scorpios, and I tried really, really hard not to have bounty hunters influence on me, because if it did, I would have Scorpios higher. I think Scorpios is a very capable bot. That wedge and like the driving, very good on it. The reason why I have it down so low is that even though its bread and butter is like countering horizontals, it lost to a horizontal in Bloodsport, and like Bloodsport was able to peel the edges off, like the edge of the wedge off of Scorpios. So that gives me a little bit of concern. And the second reason why I'm concerned about Scorpios is that that hammer saw doesn't look like it does a lot of damage, which could be a problem for Scorpios later down the line if it's like a very close match and like it had to be like one off of a decision based off of damage. I definitely don't think they would be able to win it. But right now, I think 19 is a good spot for Scorpios.
Nice. So 18, where I went with Claw Viper. Claw Viper was ranked quite a bit lower by a few people already in this video. I think this design has the potential and stuff. Like, this bot is very fast. It's pretty well driven right now. Like, they were able to take quite a few shots from Hijinks' spinner, and I believe Hijinks has a reasonably powerful undercutter there. Claw Viper has proven that they are quite durable. Like a lot of you have said already, I do have concerns involved in like the weaponry there, as the grabber and I think the lifter has worked, but the grabber I think that fell in both of their fights so far. Like, even if they were to almost take off those things, which I don't think Claw Viper is going to do for this thing, and charge at their opponents like a battering ram, that's worked so far for them. Like, it worked against their Hijinks fight. They managed to get a few good moments in their against Black Dragon and stuff. Like, I still think Claw Viper is very much in it right now for a top 32 spot. I do believe they do need that win, but I think even if it's a good loss or something like that, I think Claw Viper is going to be one the selection committee is going to take a look at and stuff, and possibly give them a spot in the top 32, even if they're at 1 and 2, because Claw Viper has done some very impressive stuff this season so far. I've been very impressed with the design, and I think they can make the top 32 and potentially go further than that.
Okay, so for number 18, I got Scorpios. One more higher than podcasts. So Scorpios, he pretty much put it well. The Scorpios is very well driven. You know, it's got a cool weapon and it's a solid robot. I mean, we've seen it do very well before. It's at 1 and 1. So losses to Bloodsport, which is like a beast. That there's no shame to losing to Bloodsport. But yeah, I think it just needs to get a good win, and then I think it could break the top 16 for sure.
Right, so I have Chomp at number 18 for me. Chomp looks like it has had a ton of improvements since its 2018 season. That hammer looks insanely powerful. It looks like it could just like pierce through metal and just because he put several holes in Gamma 9 in that fight. However, I do see an issue with Chomp in which that I feel that Chomp could still get flipped over kind of easily, not as easily as like the 2018, 2016 version of Chomp, but like I mean, Gamma 9, who's a lifter, was able to almost flip Chomp over, and so I can see vertical spinners and flippers still being able to like put Chomp a few feet in the air and flip him over and then just completely take advantage of Chomp. But that's going to be a huge risk in doing so because you're basically risking taking a hammer shot from Chomp, which could be like the end of you, basically. So I can see Chomp doing well this season and maybe even getting 3-0. So, but I can still see it maybe getting a bit unlucky against some of its fights and losing in the first round.
Okay, I have Rotator at number 18, and if we were taking bounty hunters into consideration, I feel like I would put Rotator higher, but I didn't. So Rotator stays at number 18. Rotator, I feel like, is one of the most reliable robots out there. It's going to take hits, and it's going to take hits well. And with its fight with Beta, it's whatever. Like we've already like seen the fight, we already know what happens. I think it's still very like powerful. Like the spinner's very powerful because it took the hammer right off of Beta. And I do feel like this has a lot of high potential, even though it's 0-1. It's got some good fights ahead. I know it faces Valkyrie, and then I don't know what other robots it faces, but I think there is great potential here for Rotator to get higher in my ranking. And I feel like it's a formidable foe if they get deep into the tournament.
Definitely. 17, where I got Copperhead right there. Yeah, Copperhead, even while doing these rankings, I feel like Copperhead is potentially a little underseeded here. Now, as Copperhead, they got a victory over Gigabyte. It was quite a destructive victory as they managed to take the shell completely off of Gigabyte. The big problem with that and why I have them ranked right at 17 rather than like in like the top 15, top 10 or something like that. Gigabyte seemed to be having issues very early, like right at the start of that fight. No, it's right when they got that full body spinner moving. Like the self-righting mechanism was going along with it, and they quickly lost the self-righting mechanism, and resulting in them driving blind and such. Like Copperhead did take out a big opponent, but they took out a big opponent who was facing damage early, so that kind of makes that fight like a little less impressive in my opinion. Like I'm sure like with the rest of y'all all like and the viewers as well, like you probably found that fight very impressive, which I'm not saying I did not. Like I did find that fight very impressive. Copperhead is definitely a lot better built than what they were in the 2019 season, and I think Copperhead will definitely go far this season. No, I think Copperhead definitely has major potential to do very well this season, and I can't wait to see their other two fights.
Okay, so for number 17, I picked Aegis. It's no, I actually don't know why I put Fusion so high. I mean, it looked good and it fight against Aegis, but yeah, Fusion's actually in the 20s somewhere. But it looked good in that fight. It was very destructive, but at the same time, it was very destructive to a robot that was made out of Kevlar. So I mean, that's something that should be addressed. But in its fight against Mad Catter, definitely struggled a lot. And I think it needs to get like a good win in the next fight if it wants to make number 17, because I don't know why I put it that high.
All right, so I put Scorpios in number 17, and mainly just because Zach Lytle is one of the best drivers of the sport. And Scorpios is such a really great counter against horizontal spinners that it could just take him wherever he wants and just end them with his saw. And I can see Scorpios even taking on a few vertical spinners.
We lost you, civilian.
Yeah, you're silent.
Your podcast, you want to get to yours while Civilian
Okay.
reconnects.
Yep, I got you. Okay, so my number 17 is Hypershock, and I like Hypershock, and I did feel very disappointed in its fight with Gruff. I feel like if they can figure out a lot of the problems that plagued them during Hypershock, like their weapon wasn't really like that powerful to me. It seemed if they're able to fix that, I say this is a top 10 bot. But right now, from what I've seen, it's not like good. And I would definitely rank it. It's weird because I feel like I would rank it lower based off of what happened in Bounty Hunters. But for now, it's staying at 17, and we'll see what happens.
All right.
Am I back?
Yep, you are.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Okay, where was I? Yeah, Scorpios is a great driver. It has a great saw, and I can see it just taking out a lot of vertical spinners, but I can also see it taking a ton of hits and losing in the process. So Scorpios is kind of like the duck of 2020, like my fist, your face. I mean, my face, your fist type of robot. So I can see it making it pretty far in the tournament. And I could say this is probably the year Scorpios will make the tournament finally.
Hopefully.
Definitely. All right, let's get to 16, where I got Shatter at
Yeah.
16. I'm going to disagree that you think Scorpios is the duck of Battlebots. I think Shatter is the duck of Battlebots this season. Like, I don't disagree that Scorpios is durable
I mean,
as
there's
well.
a few contenders for it.
Yes, there are a few
Yeah.
big contenders like Shatter, Scorpios, Gruff as well. Quite a few others. But yeah, Shatter, one of their big improvements was improving their durability for this season. And they've definitely proven that that has been working out well for them. As we saw one very impressive victory for them against Ghost Raptor, as we saw them just going straight at Ghost Raptor right from the start of that fight. And I found that to be a very impressive victory out of Shatter here to start the season. Then for their second fight, they got Malice, which a lot of people did find that one controversial and stuff. Like, I think even though Shatter lost that fight, we saw one big weapon on weapon collision that both took out the spinner of Malice and removed the head of Shatter's hammer, but Shatter did pull off. Shatter did manage to continue striking with the head with the stick of their hammer, even though there was no head on it, and still managed to get a ton of jabs out of it. Like, Shatter was functioning very well despite having lost the head of their hammer. Of course, though, I do believe that it's an easy fix, but that could be a possible concern for Shatter, or like losing the head of the hammer. I know one of you guys mentioned that as well. It could be a potential concern, but I'm not too worried about this one for Shatter, or as Shatter has still proven themselves to be a very good design, well driven, and as Adam Wrigley does a terrific job driving it. It's very durable. Then the hammer is quite powerful. It's a nice addition to it.
All right, so number 16 is Robot. I
You
mean,
mean
they
number
got to win
one?
over Trace. Well, yeah, they're gonna still win the tournament.
Obviously.
But, yeah, number 16 is Robot. It's and it would be a lot higher. It's just that Tracer is definitely a robot that struggles, so it's not the most glorious win. I mean, it just pretty much hit Tracer and Tracer flipped over. I mean, there's not much to that. As for the Mad Catter fight, I mean, it lost, but it probably would have won that if it hadn't turned its back and tried to attack the mini pod, I feel like. But yeah, Robot's looking very good this season. And it's going to be the first time a robot not in the top 4 wins a giant nut. So there's that.
This will probably be my most disagreeable placement in this whole thing. I have Endgame at 16. Please hear me out on this. While I think that Endgame is a very good robot with a really great spinner and a really great driver, I do think that its win is, for lack of a better word, a bit lucky. Its fight against Tombstone. I mean, I won't say that it was undeserved, but I'm not sure what happened to Tombstone. It looked like it was kind of stuck on the screws and couldn't really do anything after that. So Endgame just took advantage. I think if Endgame, I wish their Tombstone wasn't stuck on the screws just so we could see how much power Endgame actually had, because I'm not really too sure about the power of Endgame. And as shown by Bloodsport, it can still be taken out by horizontal spinners. So I'm a little iffy about Endgame right now. I do think it's a good bot. I do think it can take out a lot of robots, but I also think that it's not the most reliable. So because of that, I'm putting it at number 16.
Okay, I have Kraken at number 16. Kraken, very, very impressive win against Witch Doctor. I think it showed that it's a very reliable bot, and I think it showed that it can do some damage, as we know, like the disc, like the edge of the disc of Witch Doctor, which it's very impressive that they were able to do that. My only concern and why I'm not putting it higher on the list is because there's a lot of, for like horizontal spinners, there's a lot of places to like bite at and to hit at. You got like the edge of Kraken, and you got like where the wheels are at Kraken. And I feel like if it's able to be like a blood sport or like a Tombstone, then like this deserves to be like a really high seating robot. But right now it's not. Like, I still have some concerns about it, but I am very like looking forward to what's going to happen with Kraken.
Nice. So next up, we'll go to ranked number 15. For number 15, I chose Scorpios for that one, with a win over Perfect Phoenix, but then started out the season with a loss to Bloodsport. I think Scorpios is still like in reasonably good shape to make the top 32, as they have proven they are pretty well armored, as they were able to take quite a few shots from Bloodsport's spinner before they had some major internal issues for that one. But then they bounced back from that fight and managed to get an impressive win over Perfect Phoenix to get a 1-1 record here. Scorpios definitely has the design, the durability, the reliability, and the driver as well to be able to win some fights and make the top 32, who potentially the top 16, knowing they came up just short both of the previous few seasons and such. Even though they technically, I think they would have made the top 16 in 2018 if they didn't drop out and such.
Yeah, they made it. They just were like, yeah, we can't do
Yeah,
this.
both Scorpios and Warhead were actually supposed to be in the tournament, but they both dropped.
Definitely. My only real concern is we did see it do some damage in a few of their bounty fights, but I haven't exactly been the most impressed with the weapon on Scorpios. Like it definitely does cause some damage, but I feel like it could do more than what it does, if you kind of get what I'm saying by that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
like
such.
Yeah.
And so on. Yeah, I think Scorpios can definitely win their third fight and manage to secure a spot in the top 32 this season.
Okay, so Mammoth, they've had quite the glow up. I mean, obviously, you know, the Black Widow fight doesn't count, although there's a win. It's still impressive. But I mean, they took out Huge and they just went for it, and they weren't a coward about it with a cage. Oops. But you know, they got Huge out of the arena. You know, that lifter definitely looks like it has a lot more, what's the word, torque, I guess it would be, and just a lot more powerful. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they dish out in their next fight against Hypershock in this week. But yeah, Mammoth definitely a bot to look out for.
before Hydra versus Huge, I had Hydra as my number 1. Now look where he's at. So yeah, that Hydra Huge fight really did Hydra in for me. I don't think that fight helped Hydra in the slightest. It really made the bot kind of worse because we didn't see the flipper in action at all, which kind of sucked. But still, this does not mean I think Hydra's a bad bot. Not at all. Hydra is a really great flipper, as proven in its fight against Witch Doctor. But I mean and I'm pretty sure in its third fight it's gonna get probably back into the top 10 for me. But for now I have to put it in number 15 just because of the showing it did against Huge.
Number 15, I have Valkyrie, and I honestly don't remember why I put Valkyrie so high. I feel like I should have put it lower, but I'm gonna try to work this angle. So
Valkyrie, page
Valkyrie,
from my book.
yes. Valkyrie, even though they did win, it was more of its like Tantrum's fight to lose, and we all know Tantrum lost. Valkyrie, I still feel like has a lot of potential, though. There is a lot of variety in its weapon bars. So even though it is like a horizontal, it has a lot of variety. And I feel like you could catch some opponents with that. And I also feel like it's more for some reason I feel like it's more durable than previous seasons. It just looks more durable. And like it was sort of tested out when it faced Tantrum, but I feel like Valkyrie is a very strong robot, and I feel like it definitely has the potential to do some damage and make it far. But at this point, I don't understand why I have it at 15. It should be like number 18 or something like that.
All right, 14, Kraken. Currently 1-1. Took a loss that was possibly controversial, a controversial judge's decision to Black Dragon in their first fight, and then they managed to completely turn the tables, learn from that fight, and managed to take out Witch Doctor in the last episode in one of the most fantastic main events I've seen so far. Like,
Yeah.
Kraken proved after that fight, like, I predicted that this was true. Kraken proved that is true, that they are the real deal this season. Like, this is the best version of Kraken that we have seen so far out of Battlebots history. And yeah, Kraken went no fear right at Black Dragon. They went no fear right at Witch Doctor, where they were probably an even bigger underdog, and still managed to come out on top in that one. Kraken has managed to pull off two very impressive fights. Like, even though they lost to Black Dragon in the first fight, that was a good loss. Like, they put up a heck of a show in both fights that they've had so far. Kind of like what was mentioned earlier, I do have concerns for horizontal spinners, but I bet Mac definitely has a decent plan for horizontal spinners, as we saw him nearly perfectly box rush Son of Waiachi and possibly take him out in 2019. So I got confidence in Kraken this season. Like, I think Kraken's got a top 32 spot right now, even if they don't win their third fight. Like, that was Kraken is doing a fantastic job this season so far.
Okay. First off, in response, they do have a special wedge for the bottom of their mouth that is for horizontals. It has like the slopes on the side.
Good to know.
Okay.
Good to know.
Didn't know that.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah, Shatter is my number 14. They're doing very well. I mean, their first fight, they just obliterated Ghost Raptor, and it was a very impressive performance. And they just go for it. They don't care. I mean, yeah, they lost their Hammerhead in the Malice fight, but they lost their Hammerhead because they straight up went into the fast spinner with their hammer. Like, that's the reason why they lost it. They didn't lose it because they were incompetent. They just lost it because they're aggressive. At the same time, I feel like I sort of disagree with the Malice Shatter fight. I don't disagree with it enough to say, like, oh, Shatter was robbed, because it was like one of those fights that's so close that, like, it's like the coin flip civilian arc and I were doing last night. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like one of those sort of deals. But in the very least, even if they lost that fight, it wasn't like a loss where I looked at it and I'm like, oh, Shatter did bad. It was more so, yeah, Shatter did pretty good, and they almost did it. So 14, I think, is a good spot for them right now, and they do more in their next fight. They could even get higher, I think.
So I have Malice for my 14. Malice was really impressive in its X backwards fight, showed a lot of damage. And while I disagree with the Malice Shatter fight, I do feel that Malice did do pretty well in the fight overall. It showed a lot of push drive power in the fight. So looking back, I can see how one would make an argument for Malice. And yeah, the weapon is really destructive. It looks very destructive and could easily take out a ton of robots just based on how powerful it is. I know it's fighting Mad Catter in its third fight, which I think Malice could pull out a win in that fight. In my opinion, I could see Malice winning that fight. The only problem with it is that Malice hasn't really got in any like high quality robot wins. I mean, it beat Shatter, but I didn't agree with the decision. It did put up a fight against Shatter, but I don't. I agree. Malice did do good against Shatter, but like I didn't agree with the decision. And as for Axe backwards, it's Axe backwards. The only win Axe backwards has is against Ultimo Destructo back in 2018. So yeah. So I
Hold
think
up, they should have beaten Devil Egg.
Yes.
Okay, so they've gotten 2 wins in 2018.
Well, they should have gotten 2
They
wins.
should have gotten 2 wins. But Malice seems like it has a lot of potential, but at the same time, it could also be. I can't see it taking on a lot of vertical spinners. I could see it taking out Mad Catter, but not like Black Dragon or Endgame or something like that. So yeah, Malice, good bot, but I can see some flaws in the robot that some robots could take advantage of.
Okay, so I have Whiplash at number 14. First thing I want to say is that Whiplash has a very good driver in Matty Vasquez, and the lifter weapon on Whiplash is incredible. It had a very tough fight in Sawblaze, and I feel like you can't take that against it like too much. I feel like there is a lot of potential. Shocker, I said that again. There's a lot of potential in Whiplash to win some games, win some matches, and regain its sort of spot as one of the best. Because right now it's sort of sitting in like this, like, yeah, it's a pretty good bot, but like it's normally sitting in like a very like, oh my gosh, it's one of the best bots. It's so well driven. But right now I have it at 14, and it's gonna stay around here unless it has like a very like good win against a good robot.
13, where I have Hydra. Hydra started off the season with a very impressive win over Witch Doctor. Yes, they did have some issues at the end of the fight that a lot of people thought made this fight controversial, exactly. But I personally agreed with the whole thing that happened and in that fight. No, as they sent Witch Doctor flying so many times, and I found that incredibly impressive if there. However, though, when they fought Huge, like, I'm no offense to the Ewert clan there, like they did follow all the rules, like there nothing they did in there. Yes, like even when Ewert was arguing with the referee and stuff, like everything they did in that fight was perfectly legal, and I think the cage was a really decent strategy. Like, yes, that changes my opinions a little bit if you've seen the podcast from this episode, but yeah, that was kind of after, because I rewatched the fight after filming that thing and such. Like, yeah, like I didn't like the outcome or the whole execution of the fight. Is I found the fight very boring, but it was an oddly nice strategy. It was an oddly genius strategy by Hydra. However, though, like we didn't see any action out of that flipper. Or like no, as they said, the Waiachi team said, like in their damage report on their Facebook account, that they were hoping to get that flipper underneath one of the wheels of Huge and managed to flip them up in the air and stuff, which we didn't end up getting to see happen. And kind of like with the beta fight, that kind of disappointed me a little bit that we didn't get to see it. I was really hoping to see Hydra manage to get a flip on Huge, kind of like compare it to when Bronco took on Huge last season and such. Like, I think even though Hydra didn't get a win that impressed me very much, which that's all my opinion. Like, I know a lot of people, they did find that win very impressive. Yeah, I have Hydra ranked at 13, but I feel like if they get another impressive win like their first fight, they'll definitely be a top 10 bot, potentially even a top 5 bot here.
Okay, so for number 13, I have Kraken, and Kraken's had quite a glow up. I mean, in its debut season, it like went what, like 1-3, 1-4, something like that.
Something like that.
Only one against Red Devil. Season 2, it won against the 2020
I
champion.
think they beat Chomp in an exhibition fight as well.
No,
that year.
Chomp.
No, they lost to Chomp.
Oh, they
They,
lost
they,
to
they
Chomp.
like grabbed onto Chomp's hammer and then that flipped them over and they couldn't self-right
Yeah.
after that.
Okay, I'm probably thinking of Basilisk. That's when they took on Chomp.
Yeah, Basilisk beat
Yeah.
Chomp.
Basilisk, yeah.
But yeah. So then last season, Kraken managed to beat Shatter in a 2020 champion Ribot, and then but this year it just seems like they've even gone further because now they're facing like straight up elite bots. Like both robots they fought are robots that are like the top 10 best robots of the reboot. I mean, they faced Black Dragon, they lost, but it wasn't like a crappy loss. Like it was like, I mean, you know, if you lose a fight and people are like mad about the decision, that probably means that you got a good loss out of that. I mean, I agreed with the decision. Plus, Black Dragon's on my fantasy team. Shout out to Black Dragon. But you know, at the same time, it beat Witch Doctor, beat the runner-up. Now, granted, it's the runner-up curse, but it was very well driven and it handled Witch Doctor like a beast. And I think that, in the very least, if Kraken theoretically loses its third fight, I think they'll still be in contention for the top 32 just because of how good they did in their first 2 fights.
Okay, so I have Shatter as my number 13. Shatter has shown some good improvements since 2018. It's definitely shown a lot better driving in its fights, and I think Shatter has the potential to be the best hammer bot in my opinion. Shatter, it did really well against Ghost Raptor in its first fight. And while it did lose to Malice, as Pory said, if you have people that are saying, hey, no, this bot should have won, that's kind of a good loss for Shatter. So I think Shatter's in a good spot to make the playoffs this year. And I'm not sure who Shatter's third fight is, but Shatter looks like really good in this year, so I can see it getting into the top 16 and maybe even the quarterfinals based on just how well of a driving Shatter has.
Okay, I have Malice at 13. And I feel like coming into the season, a lot of people weren't that high on Malice. And I feel like Malice has proven all of those people wrong. I feel like it is such a powerful robot. It beat X backwards. X backwards isn't a really good robot, but it beat it in such spectacular fashion. Now, whatever you say about the Shatter Malice fight, at the end of the day, Malice won it, and I think you should respect that. Like, it's a very respectable win, and I feel like if it beats one of like a top 10 robot, like the sky's the limit for Malice. Like I feel like it's more destructive than people have imagined, and I feel like I feel like it's capable to take some hits. We need it. We need to see if it's able to take some like strong hits because it's faced a hammer bot and it's faced a drum spitter that can barely function as a drum spinner. So it needs to take like big hits in order to have me rank it higher. But right now, Malice is very impressive for me right now.
12, where I have the Battlebots Armageddon 2020 champion. If you don't know what that is, that's Pory Nog's series. Yeah. We got Ribot, who is 1-1 right now. And so Ribot, they got a win over Tracer, lost to Mad Catter. The Tracer fight, that wasn't the most impressive, as a lot of us did have high hopes for Tracer and stuff, and didn't go so well for Tracer and such. Like, I'm not saying like Tracer is a bad machine or something like that, because I think Tracer would be able to get some wins and for their second and third fight. But then with Mad Catter, like I didn't find this a bad loss for Ribot, even though, yeah, I very much agreed with the judge's decision. Like we saw Ribot get a few good hits in on Mad Catter, or even the team mentioned in their damage report recently that it was a mistake for their driver to target the mini bot, because that was the real turning point in that fight when Mad Catter started getting some really nice shots in with that vertical spinner. So I definitely believe Ribot is a major contender for the top 32 this season, and I bet they could get it. I bet they probably need the third fight, need to win that one in order to make the top 32. But even if it ends up being a pretty decent loss to that one, I think Ribot's still going to be a major contender for the top 32.
Yeah, Ribot's gonna win it all. My number 12 is Gruff. I probably should have made that one a little lower too. Not like a lot lower, like maybe like 2 or 3 spots. But Gruff is looking very impressive this year. I mean, it's got both flamethrowers. The flamethrowers are looking tough, and obviously it's very well driven. And I mean, you're all saying about robots that are the duck of the season. Gruff is Duck wishes it could be as durable as Gruff. I mean, it looks wonderful. It's super strong, and I think if it wins another fight, it'll definitely be in the top 32, no doubt. But I think it could get a pretty high seed if it has 2 good fights coming up.
So for me, I chose Mammoth, who had an amazing win against Huge. Like that was probably one of the most iconic BattleBots fights ever. We got a technical out of the arena, and we got Mammoth jumping around like an RA2 Havoc glitch. And Mammoth showed just how well it can use. It's like Mammoth isn't gonna do like amazing this season, I don't think, but it's gonna be good against situational bots like Huge, because Mammoth was able to flip Huge no problem at some points. So I can see Mammoth doing fairly well this season. Maybe I can't see it winning, probably not, but I can see it doing well against its fights. We know it's fighting Hypershock, which I could actually see Mammoth pulling off an upset for that, actually. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just excited to see how Mammoth will perform in its next 2 fights to see. And I think it's, at the very least, it needs to have 2 good losses to make it into the season, or it needs to have a win to be into the top 32, because I'm not entirely sure if Mammoth will be in the top 32 yet, but I do think Mammoth is a really good bot so far this season, and I see a lot of potential in the robot.
At number 12, I have Beta. Now, a lot of this ranking is based on the potential. Like, I hope we see the fire, like the hammer fire. If we don't see the hammer fire, I'll be very upset, because Beta was one of my favorites during season 2. It was a lot of people's favorites during season 2. I feel like the driving capabilities of Beta are very good. John Reed is such a good driver. He knows how to keep his front wedge at the opponent at all times. He is very methodical about how he drives his robot. I just feel like they need to fire off the hammer more and able to go far in like the tournament. But right now, Beta is looking pretty strong because of the wedge and the driving from John Reed. Yeah.
All right, next up we got 11, where I have Rotator, who is currently in the hole 0-1 with a 0-1 record right now. That was Rotator. We saw a bunch of issues from them last season, like in the 2019 season, whether it was blades breaking and into pieces, them having drive issues or something like that. In this fight, we didn't see any of those. No, as they came right at Beta with that horizontal spinner, and that spinner did not stop spinning and stuff. No, as they were functioning they were functioning at the end of that fight like exactly how well they were functioning at the beginning of the fight. They seemed to not be taking any damage despite getting rammed into the rails several times in that one. Like Rotator, this is definitely the best version of Rotator we've ever seen, and Rotator had a great run in the tournament in 2018, and such. Like Rotator did lose that fight, and a lot of people did find it controversial knowing their opponent didn't use their weapon even once in that fight. But Rotator is still a heck of a bot to beat. This is not a bad loss for Rotator, and they got 2 big fights coming, and I think if they can pull off one or both of those, especially, Rotator will get into the top 32 with a seed around here, especially if they manage to win both of those fights, potentially even higher, like in the top 10 and stuff.
Yes. So for number 11, I picked Endgame because, well, they beat Tombstone in their first fight. They knocked Tombstone out of the arena, which was super impressive. I know one of you was saying it was luck, but I'm not sure if I would consider it to be.
I said that, but I didn't really mean it to be luck. I just meant it as more like convenient than luck.
Yeah. But I think from what I heard, I think it did a lot of damage to the one wheel, and that's why it was kind of like chilling by the screws because it couldn't really move a lot. That's what I heard. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me on that. But that definitely looked really good. And at the same time, I'm not really gonna hold much against it for losing to Bloodsport because
sorry about the
Bloodsport
typo.
is freaking terrifying this year.
Yeah, sorry about the typo. It should be 1-1.
I just noticed that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if it wins its next fight, it's definitely going to get into the tournament with a pretty decent seed.
Speaking of Tombstone, we got Tombstone as my number 11 here. Now, Tombstone, we all know Tombstone. He's that guy who likes murdering all his opponents in the most amazing ways possible. But yeah, Tombstone is always a good robot. It's always destructive in all of its fights. Seeing Tombstone lose to Endgame, it definitely showed how many people know how to fight Tombstone now. Like ever since Tombstone lost to Bombshell in 2018, a lot of people know the strategy to take out Bombshell now. To take out Tombstone now. So, and in its fight against Slapbox, that was just a classic Tombstone fight, just Tombstone murdering the opponent in critical fashion. The only reason Tombstone is not in my top 10 is because we don't really know the quality of how well Slapbox is. So we don't really know if that was like a real good win or if Tombstone just took out a rookie bot that isn't that great. No offense to Slapbox.
Okay, number 11, I have Copperhead. First things first, wow, Copperhead is so powerful. It's like I can't even describe how powerful Copperhead became from last season to this season. I feel like everything they adjusted to the robot, all of it seemed like very small adjustments, and yet it's cranked out like a big hit against Gigabyte. I am very excited to see what Copperhead has in store for us. Maybe the only reason why I have it at number 11 is my top 10 I feel are very set in stone. We know that they're the best. And I don't think Copperhead has proven that they're one of the best yet. They probably need to win against a Bloodsport or something like that in order to say that they're a top contender. But right now Copperhead's sitting real pretty.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's go to top 10, where I have Malice at number 10. 2-0 right now with wins over Axe Backwards and a controversial win over Shatter. Malice, they've proven they are the real deal, Mouse. We've been hearing about Malice is since like early 2020 here. And Malice has definitely proven that they are the real deal in this one. Now they may have taken on Axe Backwards in the first one, which Axe Backwards is Axe Backwards, but that was an impressive victory out of them. Like they managed to cause a giant ball of fire and Axe Backwards, which is fun to watch and stuff. And then they even pulled off a pretty impressive victory, like proved that that bot does have quite a bit of push power despite having lost their weapon. They'll definitely have a challenge for their third fight, as I was hoping to see them take on a big opponent, and we'll get that, as they're going to take on Mad Catter for their third fight, which is probably coming up soon, I would guess, knowing that those two, it's been a little bit since we've seen their second fight and such.
I think it's this week or the week after.
I think it's the week after, yeah.
But yeah,
this week. I'm not
that'll be an excellent fight. That'll be a major test for both machines, and I'm looking forward to it.
So number 10 is Hydra. So Hydra would be much well, not much lower. He'd probably be like 20 or something if his first win wasn't such a good one. Like the win against Witch Doctor was very impressive and it held its own. It might have ended up being a little higher if it was like fully functional at the end of the fight, but it was kind of like having issues with movement because realistically Hydra is kind of a fragile robot, but also it would have been probably like top 3 if it hadn't had such a weak win against Huge. Not using the weapon at all, or just pretty much boxing Huge in the corner, and that's a whole fight. That definitely hurts it in the rankings.
Kicking off my top 10 for the top 32 is Claw Viper. So Claw Viper is really great driving, as we've shown in the Hijinks fight. It even showed great driving in the Black Dragon fight as hold on, podcast.
Okay, so so I guess I'll say my top 10. My number 10 is Mad Catter. Mad Catter has like really impressed me. I'm pretty sure like no one saw that Mad Catter was going to be this good, like this early on in the season. And it had a very impressive win over Fusion, which if you remember when I was on, I think it was episode 4, I said that Fusion, the fight we saw with Fusion, we shown that it was a very like good bot at tanking hits with that wedge. And then when it fought Ribot, it's very good at dealing damage. So I feel like this is the perfect storm of a second-year robot that like didn't prove much this season before. It's now a very good robot, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Definitely.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
As I was saying, Claw Viper has shown a lot of potential up to this point. It's really it's as I said in our episode 3, not episode 3, our episode 5 review. Claw Viper seems like it will be like the Gruff of 2020, like the bot that takes a lot of hits but still does well. And I think Claw Viper can still seat its way into the 2020 season if it has a good third win. I think that it has a lot of potential to maybe even make it to the top 16.
All right, so now number 9. So for number 9, I chose Beta, which I think is the one spot out of my rankings that I think people are probably going to disagree with most, knowing that Beta won in a controversial decision and didn't fire their hammer even once in that one. And yeah, I agree with you. I'm also disappointed that they didn't fire the hammer. The main reason why I still have them in the top 10 is not just because John Reed is a good driver, like some people have said earlier in this video, but But that they are very well defended. That wedge is quite low to the ground. They are very well designed, like for horizontal spinners and stuff like that. Like I coming into this season, I'm predicted that they are going to be an absolute menace to. The only type I really think they wouldn't be a menace to would be like vertical spinners here. Beta is one bot I was very excited to get to see back for this season. And yeah, sure enough, they are back. I do have them at the top 10, but then yeah, I'm hoping we'll get to see more of that hammer, as I know they're taking on Rusty, I believe, in the next episode, and I don't know what their third fight is. And I imagine we're going to get to see that hammer for the first time, which will be very exciting for me. Pory. Pory, you're up.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there we go.
My mic was
go.
turned off for some reason. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so I have Copperhead at number 9. I don't think anybody would disagree that they're an absolute beast this season. I mean, they ripped off Gigabyte's shell and sent it into the lights. But yeah, I feel like if they do well in their next 2 fights, I would give them probably the top 5 spot. But yeah, Copperhead is just looking fantastic this year. I mean, last year they were pretty good, but this year they're just like next level. Like they amped it up to 11.
When I started ranking my robots, the robots for the top 32, the top 9 was probably the hardest for me to pin down for who I should put where, because I kind of think that I might put Uppercut a bit higher, but at the same time, I do think that Uppercut should be number 9, maybe because its first win is against Gemini, which wins consist of unreliable flippers and other multibots. And but Uppercut still looks crazily destructive. It has a lot of potential to win a lot of fights, but also has a lot of potential to lose some fights, as because of the design, a lot of robots could take control of Breaker Box because of its like awkward shape, as like Breaker Box was able to even take control of Uppercut at some points in their fight. But still, I think Uppercut is really destructive, and I think they could make the quarterfinals or maybe even the semifinals.
Next, I have Endgame at number 9. Now, I do feel like Endgame has made improvements over the season 4 and season 3. I feel like it's probably the most attractive we have seen Endgame, and no matter what you say about like how like lucky like its win over Tombstone was, like it'd still be Tombstone. It'd still be one of the best, and you'll see like Tombstone hasn't shown up in the rankings. You will see it show up later in this video. I do think that Endgame still has a lot of potential, and I know that there was like some problems against the Bloodsport fight. If they're able to take the Kings out, this robot can go far, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Endgame in the top 4 of the tournament.
Definitely. Number 8, I got Tombstone there. Now, as lots of you might be thinking, why isn't Tombstone ranked in the top 5 or even number 1, like how they were the first 3 seasons when Battlebots was revived here? And yeah, no, as they did take a really early defeat, taking a quick knockout against Endgame in their first fight. But then, yeah, they came back and managed to destroy Slapbox. So Tombstone is still Tombstone. Like, it still is destroyed stuff. Now, as yes, like they did take an early loss, but Tombstone is definitely bouncing back from that. I would rank them higher than where they're at right now if they can get a second win for their third fight over another like really elite machine. Like once again, no offense to Slapbox here. Like we saw Tombstone take on all 3 Sawblaze, Rotator, and Lockjaw last season, the regular season. Wonder if they could take on another one of those. Another one that will give Tombstone a heck of a challenge in here. Like that'll definitely prove that Tombstone is still the real deal, despite a lot of teams figuring out how to defeat Tombstone. And so I'm looking forward to all of this. I think Tombstone will definitely bounce back. Definitely has bounced back from that end game loss, and will be able to go far in the tournament.
All right. Shout out to Civilian Arc and I. We both in the pickle gang.
Pickle
So yeah,
Pickle Donald.
So yeah, my number 8 is the spinning pickle itself, Lockjaw. It's at 2-0. I mean, Lockjaw's one of the elites. I mean, they last 2 seasons they've been phenomenal, making the semis and the quarterfinals, having a 3-1 record last year. No, the moment they're 2-0. I mean, they beat Shrederator. It wasn't the most flashy win, but they were well driven. Having a little bit of issues, but it wasn't too bad. And against Big Dill, they did pretty good, and they messed up that weapon really good. But yeah, I think if Lockjaw can do well against Jackpot in its next fight, I think that they'll have a pretty decent shot at making an even higher seed.
What Pory said.
Okay, so at number 8, I got Uppercut. Uppercut looking very powerful. It literally kicked a field goal for one of the Gemini robots. I feel like Uppercut is a lot more powerful than people expected. Like, it did get some really like good shots like in 2019, but I feel like this year they've stepped it up. The only thing that concerns me about Uppercut is that they still have like a little bit of gyro dancing where they are like tipping whenever they're turning very quickly, which is like something that a lot of robots have. But seeing that like Uppercut is kind of a wide robot, and it oh, I forgot what I was gonna say, but it's a very wide robot, and I feel like it would be easy for robots to get under them. But other than that, Uppercut looking very powerful. Very excited to see what Uppercut can do.
7, where I have Endgame and the same exact image and such. So Endgame went over Tombstone and lost to Bloodsport. No, like Civilian, you kind of mentioned this a little bit when you ran to Endgame for your part of this. Like that was a good win by Endgame against Tombstone, but we didn't really get to see exactly a big test out of Endgame from that one. And then we kind of got that when they fought Bloodsport in their second one, and Endgame is clearly still having some of the issues that we were seeing out of them last season. But still, like some of those, if they could make the tweaks and manage to get those problems out for their third fight, Endgame is definitely going to go far this season. Like this is still the best version of Endgame that we have seen out of them so far. Or now, is that vertical spinner still has just as much power. It's quite well armored, and yeah, we'll hope they get the internals and stuff of together, and definitely be a success this year.
Okay, I picked Uppercut for number 7. I mean, you all saw the Gemini fight. The thing's fucking terrifying. I think that we have a good future in store with Uppercut. I mean, I know they fight Sawblaze, and then they fight Hijinks, I think. I'm not sure how it'll perform against Sawblaze, but I think it'll at least put up a really good fight because that weapon is freaking fierce. I know it has like issues with like the gyroing and all that, but I think that Uppercut is definitely going to make the top 32 and maybe even make like the top 4.
All right, so I have Black Dragon as my number 7 robot. Black Dragon is shown a lot of great fights in its 2019 season. Black Dragon versus Minotaur, Black Dragon versus Bloodsport. It's shown a lot of potential. And Black Dragon is now the only Brazilian bot, so it has to represent Brazil, which it's doing perfectly right now. Black Dragon has a win over Kraken, and Claw Viper. Both of them are pretty good wins in and of themselves. Well, I do disagree with the decision of Black Dragon versus Kraken. Black Dragon still put up a heck of a fight against Kraken, so I can see how the judges would pick Black Dragon in that fight. And I think Black Dragon will definitely make one of the top 10 seeds this going into it. I think they already locked their spot into the 2020 playoffs, and now we're just waiting to see how well they will do in their third fight.
Oh, okay. I have Gruff at number 7. I feel like some people will say, "Oh, Gruff's too high." I say I don't care. I really like Gruff. I really do like Gruff. It is a very durable bot. I think it's the duck of this season where it's like my face, your fist. He just
I'm saying.
like the thing is, he is so powerful, and as soon as you get even remotely close to Gruff, he's gonna burn you on a stake. Literally, Gruff could probably open a barbecue restaurant and then get 5-star reviews and like a bunch of Michelin stars. That is like how good like its flamethrowers are. That's how good it it doesn't really show how good its driving is, but it has a good driver. It just likes to stay in front of people and keep the control. And I do think that Gruff has a bright future, and it's very good at tanking a lot of robots.
Definitely. 6, where I have Gruff here. I have Gruff at 1 seed higher than that. I completely agree with podcasts, as Gruff is very well driven, it's very durable, and it's got 2 very powerful flamethrowers to it. Gruff has made quite well to control fights, as they were very aggressive, showed a lot of control, and we saw lots of action out of those flamethrowers in that fight. Gruff is definitely a real deal this season. Like they had an impressive season last year. So far they're having a really good season despite only having 1 fight under their belt. Looking forward to their remaining fights. I think Gruff's in a really good place for the top 32 right now.
Hey, so for number 6, we got Malice. They're 2-0. They're one of the 2 robots carrying my fantasy team. Shout out to them. So Malice is looking very good. I mean, for the first fight, they completely obliterated Axe backwards. I mean, I know that's not saying much because it's Axe backwards, but at the same time, it still was a very, very impressive performance. And for its second fight, it beat Shatter by a decision I admit I disagree with, but I mean, even if they had lost that, it would have been a good loss. But I think that Malice could even break the top 5 if they win their next fight against Mad Catter, and I hope they do because of fantasy points. So yeah, shout out to Malice.
We got Copperhead as my number 6, Poison Arrow's little brother. And Copperhead, it didn't have a great 2019 season, but it is definitely showing to be a force to be.
Lost you again.
We lost you, yeah.
Go ahead, podcasts.
Okay, so okay, I have Lockjaw at number 6. Lockjaw, it's a very good veteran robot. It had, in my opinion, I thought it had a really good win over Big Dill. And well, like Shrederator, it could have done better with Captain Shrederator, but honestly, I feel like it's still a really good robot. If there's one thing I am very concerned about it is that it needs to stop its smoking problems. It needs to lay off the cigs. It just needs to get off the cigs. That's all I have to say. If it stops smoking, then I see a potential for it to go far, and I'm going to confirm it because it's always going to make the Final 4. Lockjaw's making it to the Final 4.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Yes, you are.
Basically what I was saying, Copperhead is really destructive, but the main flaw with Copperhead is its reliability. Copperhead looked like it was having reliability issues in the Gigabyte fight. So it looks like they're going to have to work that out. But if they do work that out, they're probably going to be the best vertical spinner. I'm calling it.
Wow.
I agree with that.
Ooh.
Uppercut for top 5 to lead it off here. Now, as Uppercut, I would have ranked them higher if it wasn't Gemini they took out, but still, it it's just like with Malice and Axe backwards. Like they took out Gemini in an incredibly amazing fashion here. As Uppercut managed to catapult one of the Gemini bots all the way across the arena and all the way out too, and then managed to destroy the second one as well. Like Uppercut's definitely a lot better than what it was last season. Now they'll take on Sawblaze, and I'm honestly going to predict Uppercut, to be honest. Like, but still, it'll be that'll definitely be an interesting fight. Looking forward to it. It should be a good one. Looking forward to Uppercut. I think they're another bot that's in a really good place for the top 32 right now.
Hey, Civilian Arc, I got another one. Same, cool.
Is this like the third time?
So I'm gonna say Jackpot for number 5 because their win against Sub-Zero wasn't really that impressive. Like it did a little bit of damage, but it basically got lucky in that fight. It hit the jackpot in that fight. But for their fight against Ghost Raptor, like they just like completely like stepped up, and I can't give them a low spot when they're the only robot so far this year to split a robot in half. You gotta give them credit for that.
That's fair.
Beautiful performance. Number 5 for sure.
Yeah, the only reason I don't have Jackpot higher is because of the Sub-Zero fight. If Jackpot like did some damage to Sub-Zero, then it could have been top 3 for me even. Jackpot shows a lot of potential going in. It's a $4,000 robot, and it just split a robot in half. So it looks like it could be in the running. I said Copperhead might be the most destructive vertical spinner, but Jackpot is also in the running for that as well.
Okay, I have Black Dragon. Black Dragon, we all know, like, could have lost to Kraken, but it didn't. It got some decent shots off, and I think the fight against Claw Viper was a very impressive fight for Black Dragon. It was able to get some hits in and stop it within a minute. I honestly really love Black Dragon. I never put out predictions, but Black Dragon was like who I wanted to see win, and I'm glad that it's doing well right now. It's a reliable robot. It's not the most powerful, but when you're the most reliable robot, you don't necessarily need to be the most powerful when you can just outlast a robot.
Definitely. Number 4, where I have Mad Catter there. Mad Catter definitely proving to be an elite bot this season. Much better from last season, where we saw them get split in half twice that year. Like Mad Catter came with an interchangeable, their hammer bot and their vertical spinner, least worst robotics, which is in touch with Mad Catter, part of the team, mentioned that there might be a little flame coming as well, which I'm potentially looking forward to seeing here. We've seen a lot of big stuff from Mad Catter already this season. We've seen them dish out a ton of big shots with that vertical spinner, now has managed to get some severe damage on both Fusion and Ribot, and they're up against Malice for their third fight, which will definitely be a challenge for them, but Mad Catter could definitely do it. Mad Catter, I think they have already secured their spot in the top 32 after that win against Ribot, as 2 impressive wins so far. I think they're in a spectacular place, and I think they'll go far this season.
Hey, I just realized, did I forget to put Tombstone on my top 32?
I think so.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You can add it in like late. You could put him at like 3.5 or something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't rank him that high though. Okay.
Where would you put him?
15.
Fair enough. That works.
15.5.
15.5 is Tombstone.
14.5.
I just was thinking, I'm like, I haven't seen Tombstone on my list yet, and I definitely didn't rank him this high because Tombstone didn't impress me that much, because he doesn't get I know he's going to get a free seed, high seed, just for beating up Slapbox from the selection committee, but I don't play that. But anyways, number 4 is my rock, Black Dragon, carrying my fantasy team. So Black Dragon has a win against Kraken, which was pretty good. I mean, I know a lot of people disagreed with it, but I agreed with it, and even if it had lost, it would have been a good loss. And yeah, Black Dragon's looking very fierce. It definitely whooped Claw Viper real good. And I think they absolutely are going to have a top 5 seed as long as they don't get like dominated in their next fight.
We got, for my number 4, we got our boy Kraken, who, my God, is the most surprising robot this year, easily. It looks like Kraken is shaping up to be the death roll of 2020. That robot no one expects to win, but somehow wins a lot. Kraken has done amazing so far. It's beaten Witch Doctor. It's had a close fight against Black Dragon. And I think Kraken's already in the tournament right now. No, I don't know who he's fighting for his third fight, but I'm sure as long as he has a good fight, and even if he wins or loses, I think he'll still make the tournament. Kraken, Matt Spurk is an excellent driver. And it kind of sucks that Kraken's been so overlooked for the past 2 seasons, but I'm glad that Kraken is now showing the true quality of its own robot. It's really good.
At number 4, I have Tombstone. Slapbox was kind of impressive. I wish it was a little bit more impressive, but I just have Tombstone up here because of the nature of it being Tombstone, of it being the most destructive robot in Battlebots history. We all know that Ray Billings is going to come back, and he's going to come back with a passion. He's gonna dish out some hits to anyone in his path. The endgame fight was very unfortunate for him, though. In sometimes when I think about it, I feel like Tombstone would have beaten endgame if it was like drawn out. But Tombstone isn't looking the best. It's 1-1. It's not sitting the prettiest compared to everyone that's in the top 10 for me. But right now, it still is very gruesome. It's really something to be afraid of.
All right, so now top 3. Let's get her done.
Here we go.
Where I got Black Dragon right here. Black Dragon, 2 very impressive victories so far, even though the first one was controversial. Last season, we saw a lot of big stuff out of Black Dragon. They proved their weapon is quite powerful, and they are incredibly durable and reliable. They have all of that this season so far. If they've retained it all, and including they've come a little more prepared as they claimed at the beginning of the season that they weren't exactly the most prepared for last season and such, but still, it's been helping. Now, as they got an excellent win over Kraken, they got an excellent win over Claw Viper. If Black Dragon wins their third fight, I'm betting top 5 for them in the top 32, as this bot has put up 2 entertaining performances so far.
Oh, we got the same one again, Civilian. Yeah, so for number 3 is Sawblaze. I know they only had 1 fight, but goddamn, they were scary. Like, they whooped Whiplash real good. That thing is well controlled. That weapon is freaking fierce. I think Sawblaze is absolutely going to be in the top 5, no questions asked.
Yeah, I really underlooked Sawblaze going into this season, because when I first heard of the Hammer Saw back in 2019, I'm like, how is this supposed to work? Because like based on Newton's law, this should technically be impossible, but somehow it worked. But dang, Sawblaze is really destructive this year. It has done, even in 1 fight, it has shown incredible potential and a potential giant nut at this point. I think my top 3 are all bots that I think could get the giant nut. And Sawblaze just seems like a really great design.
Okay, I have Bloodsport at number 3, and when I was doing this, it was really hard for me. I was like shuffling them around, like the top 3 around so many times. It was like kind of crazy. I settled on this. Bloodsport is number 3, and the only reason I feel like Bloodsport is number 3 is because I feel like 2-1 can beat Bloodsport, but Bloodsport is looking very, very strong. Bloodsport I had as a dark horse to win the season, and it is proving it right now. Uh, any like weapon configuration seems like destructive. We've seen the 3.1, and then we've seen like the 2.1 with like the little ones in the middle, and it's just so destructive. I really love the look of it. I really love how it's being driven. The only concern I have of it is because like the weapon does seem to sometimes start down and start back up again. But other than that, like Bloodsport's been playing fantastically.
All right, my number 2, it's the same one that we just heard of as Bloodsport is my number 2. Yeah, pretty much what BBN Podcast has said. Bloodsport has put up 2 very impressive shows, 2 destructive performances with that horizontal spinner. I was predicting Bloodsport would do very well this season compared to the last one, and they're very much proving that. Feel like even if they lose their third fight, they've locked a top 32 spot already. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of it and such. Like Bloodsport's got some major potential to win the whole thing.
So for my number 2, I picked Mad Catter. Mad Catter is definitely like having that death roll run. Like just like last year, it did okay. Got two wins, whatever. Did all right. But this year, they're just like fierce. They're a competitor. I mean, they took out Fusion with ease. They took out the 2020 champion with ease. Well, not really with ease, but like they did pretty good against Ribot. And they're just super deadly, and I really think that they're going to get a super high seed because of it, and I think that they're going to probably be like top 4 or 5, and that's good because I want more Martin Mason on screen.
Yeah, Mad Catter is just an incredible robot. Looking to, I can see Mad Catter definitely taking the giant nut. I can see it just taking out some big names. I could see it taking out Witch Doctor. I could see it taking out freaking Tombstone even. I could see it taking out Hydra. I can see it taking out a lot of bots. And I was debating even having it as the runner up for the seeding right now, but based on the potential that like Mad Catter has and the quality of Mad Catter's brother Cat King from King of Bots and how amazing that robot was, I can see Mad Catter being really destructive and just being overall a really great bot that could win the giant nut.
Okay, here we go. This might be the most controversial ranking that I have had. Hydra is number 2. Did I think Hydra should have won? Yes. Am I upset with how they did it? Yes. But Hydra right now is putting on a strategic mastermind over all the other robots right now. If I was Hydra, I wouldn't have thought of making like a stopper for Huge. And like, are they douches like going about it and just sort of like flaunting their like stuff? Yes, and I don't like that. But we're talking about the robot itself, not the driver, not how the driver acts. We're talking about the robot itself. And the robot itself is able to flip 250 pound robot up in the air like 10 or 15 feet. And you have to give it to them to make a very powerful robot. And if there's one thing I don't like about Hydra is the fact that it is kind of frail. But then again, it was also able to take like some decent shots from Witch Doctor. Give me Hydra at number 2. I don't care what anybody else thinks. Hydra is number 2, but I am a little upset at Hydra.
All right, number 1. We got 2 bots here for number 1. So let's just do Sawblaze Gang first. Like Podcast and I will explain Sawblaze, and then Pory and Civilian, you two can explain Bloodsport next. All right. So yeah, Sawblaze. that was a very dominant first fight there. Now, as they took on a very elite machine and a tough driver and Matty Vasquez there, and they put up a heck of a show. Like, that hammer saw landed so many devastating shots and such. Like, Sawblaze is a real contender for the Giant Nut this year. Jameson Go is a terrific driver. His team has done a terrific job of helping him out and such. And you got anything else to add, podcast?
It's just such a tanky robot. That wedge can tank so many shots. And I will say, I was thinking about this last night. I feel like the meta of Battlebots has shifted a little bit. Like, we know the meta for the past couple seasons have been, vertical spinners. They're so good. They're so powerful. I feel like the meta has shifted into, okay, now we need to figure out how to have vertical spinner counters. And we've seen that. Bloodsport, a very good horizontal spinner. And most vertical spinners aren't very well armored. You have that. You have very good control bots like Scorpios and Sawblaze, who have very good front armor and are able to like keep the spinners at a distance. At this point, I feel like Sawblaze is the best out of the spinner like killer like counter meta that is happening in Battlebots right now.
Definitely. All right, let's go Bloodsport gang.
Okay, so Bloodsport is just a freaking beast. I mean, it took out Scorpios. It almost peeled off the freaking wedge, something we've never seen another robot do before. Like, that spinner is fierce. They have like a million different blades they seem to be prepared for literally any robot that gets in their way. Super well driven. It has like the nice little wedgelet, so it can actually get under opponents if need be, and like dominated both of its fights. Just super impressive. Took out Endgame with ease. Like, Bloodsport, without a doubt, is, as far as the fights that we've seen this season, the best robot in the game right now.
Before I say my opinion on Bloodsport, I want to tell a funny story about some kid in the YouTube comment section of a BattleBots video who said that Bloodsport is bottom tier. Ha! Where are we now? Look at where we're at now. If you're watching this, you know who you are. You are wrong.
Oh man, best part of this video so far, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bloodsport is a force to be reckoned with. It's like a raid boss came in and just decided to murder everything in its path. Bloodsport looks really destructive, and it looks, if I had to say who would win between Bloodsport and Sawblaze, I'd say Bloodsport because of the design it has against Scorpios, because it was really well armored in that fight, because, like, think of it this way, you're basically hitting the weapon to try and damage Bloodsport. Bloodsport, I think, this season will win the Giant Nut. I am at least 75% sure that Bloodsport will go in and win the Giant Nut this year. I am excited to see how Bloodsport handles the rest of its opponents. I'm excited for its playoff year. It's going to be amazing to see how Bloodsport fights for the rest of the year.
Definitely, because we got a ton of major contenders for the Giant Nut this year. Yeah, Sawblaze definitely won. Bloodsport as well. Mad Catter, several.
Tombstone.
Yep. We got several of those. So now that we're done with the top 32, let's also check out who all is in the hunt right now for a top 32 spot. The answer to that is everybody else, pretty much. Pretty much everybody that's listed here is a bot that didn't make anybody's top 32 here. I think I got all of them. Now, some of these bots, like, we haven't seen a fight out of them yet. Others, they had a loss where they had a minor issue and stuff. Like, and on Ghost Raptor, they might be 0-2, but it's still very possible for them to come back if they can pull off an impressive third fight here. Basically, like, a lot could happen. Now, as right now we're around we're at the mid season, like probably a little past it as for what I think, but anything could happen during that. And I'm sure, like, if you probably, like, if you're viewing this, you probably disagree somewhere or in everybody's predictions. Like there you could possibly see some of these bots it's in your top 32. You could possibly see some of them in there right now and stuff. Many of these bots could very possibly sneak into the top 32 and such. And yeah, along with the fact that we haven't even seen some of them in a regular season fight. We have seen some of them in the bounty episodes that have been released, but some of them haven't had a regular season fight as for my knowledge. Like, I'm looking forward to all of that and such. Like, I can't wait to see some of these bots in action for the first time. You three all have anything else you want to say?
Not really. I'm good.
All right.
Good.
I just want to say that
We lost you again.
We lost you.
Lost you.
I will say, actually, I'll say one thing. Out of all the robots that we haven't seen yet, I am very excited to see Kronos. I feel like there's a lot of potential there. Kronos was one of my favorite, like, lower tier robots from last year that didn't make it in, and I feel like Kronos has a potential, and I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet.
I think Kronos might be bounty only.
Oh, really?
No, they had. I know for a fact they have an actual fight.
Do they?
So
yeah, they fight P1.
So it's just like Tombstone from last year, where not Tombstone, Bronco. It's just like Bronco from last year, where we didn't see Bronco until like episode 6, and then like we didn't see it for another 6 episodes, and then I just had like 3 back-to-back fights.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like
possibly.
that.
Who knows?
We'll see.
But yeah, thank you for watching this video, this long video and such. Thank you for joining me, podcast Civilian Arc and Pory Nog, as I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment below exactly what your top 32 would be at this point in the season, as I'm sure it looks very different compared to the 4 of us and such.
Yeah.
And I will hopefully see you for the next video.
Like and subscribe.
The